The 18th order. Would you please call the roll?
Vice Chairperson Brown.
Here.
Chairperson Hoag.
Here.
Board Member Morrison.
Here.
Board Member Randalls.
Present and accounted for.
Board Member Raymond.
Here.
I would like to mention this is our Cape Canaveral Community Redevelopment Agency meeting. And our first item is public participation. Do we have anybody that cares to bring up anything? Hearing none, we'll come up to new business, up to the council. We have on our approval of the minutes for community redevelopment. Approve the minutes of the community redevelopment meeting from June the 19th.
So moved.
Randalls would second that. I was present at that meeting and I find them accurate.
Ms. Raymond. We have a motion by Ms. Raymond and a second by Mr. Randalls. Will you call the roll, please?
Vice Chairperson Brown.
4.
Chairperson Hoag.
4.
Board Member Morrison.
4.
Board Member Randalls.
For the motion.
Board Member Raymond.
4.
Our second item is the approval of the CRA schedule, the meetings, and the budget approval process. We have a motion to approve.
Yeah, I just have one comment on this. It was a concern of mine, and down at the bottom where it says, in the case where a meeting is scheduled and there is no business for the CRA board meeting to consider, no meeting will be held. I would like some sort of either a notification to the council to make sure that we don't have anything. The wording could say meeting cancellations must be approved by board, or at least some sort of notice prior to the agenda. I know it's our responsibility to make sure that anything gets on the agenda, but if one of these board members essentially wants something on this agenda, and I think we should have the opportunity to bring that forth, consistent with how regular council meetings are handled. And I think this is an opportunity to do that. Either one of the two would allow, because I think that I've expressed this in the past. This is a board meeting, and while the directors are certainly driving the execution of this, we want to make sure that we're reaching out, opposed to just surprise the meetings canceled. Just a request, and wanted to see if there was any thoughts on that.
What are you asking, like if you had an item to bring to the CRA board, or if there's nothing that the city is involved in, there wouldn't be a meeting, and generally we get just like an email, or we know the meeting's not going to be held. But you're asking if one of us have something to?
Yeah.
I have, what are your thoughts and what's your opinion about this, Wes? Could you tell us?
Yeah, I think that the wisdom and the way that regular council meetings are handled, for this special district to CRA, we should copy and paste the same logic that was there, that when we're going to have a meeting, if you, Councilmember Raymond, has something, or any other member of this board, that when we bring that forward, that essentially the executive director of this cannot cancel it due to a lack of a priority based on their opinion. That if we want something on this agenda, we as board, withstand the same power as we do as council members to go forth with the meeting. And I certainly understand what the mayor's saying. Of course, you wouldn't have a meeting if you didn't need something. But I think that there's an opportunity to here to bring forth CRA items driven by the board. Does that answer your question?
Not really. I thought the normal procedure was to go to our city manager and put it on the agenda, or to Mia, our city clerk, and I thought that was handled in a very efficient way. So I'm a little confused by this, because anything that I've ever talked about, it seems to be, we talk it over, and then it's put on if it's necessary. So I don't quite comprehend what you're trying to say.
Yeah, so for example, I've placed things on the agenda in the past, and policy mandates that if a council member on behalf of the citizens wants something on the regular council meeting agenda, the city manager and staff must put that on the agenda. I think that the same logic would apply for the CRA, being that it's a separate special district, that if we want something on this agenda, that it would go on. Does that?
I don't see anything that would stop you as a council member, or myself, or any one of us going to either one of the directors or to the city manager. And if you have an item, but most of that stuff is generated outside of what we're doing. But if you have something that somebody wants, or like somebody wants a facade grant, which we're getting into on this budget, we're finally getting to the facade grant part. If somebody wants a facade grant and they come to you and well, then you have that right to go in as a CRA board member, but to just come to hold a meeting because you want to put something on it, we don't know what it is. You take that first to the director of economics, or to the proper director, or go to the city manager and get the item, expend what it is, talk about it, and it'll get put on the agenda. But how would you want to, as a board member, come and call a meeting just for you to present something? Is that what you're asking to do? Or?
Well, essentially, we can do that for a regular council meeting, and that doesn't happen. But what I'm asking for is, in the past, we would never have a meeting that we didn't need. In the past, I've asked for things to be on the CRA agenda, and it didn't happen. The meeting was canceled, and when I found out it was canceled, I realized that we got ourselves in a situation, because this is a special district and should be governed, I think, consistently the same way the city council does. What I'm asking for is, of course, I bring things to the city manager, and I've consistently done that. Specifically, our code dictates that we bring it to our city clerk, Mia, and she puts it on the agenda. And they've always done that, and they've provided a form for us to do it. It's the same logic here. So if you don't have a problem with us bringing forth, maybe the wording should say, council members submit things to the city manager. What I don't like in the part of that is the city manager the executive director of this historically canceled something that was brought forth, and I did not think that that was the right thing to do. As an elected official and appointed to this board, amongst all of us, that if we believe that it's a priority, we should have the right to put things on the agenda. And maybe it would be with a second from another council member. Maybe individually I don't have the power to do that, but with another council member signing off, or the chairman, we could move forward. That's the logic. I would be happy with a mirrored example of how regular council meetings are handled.
We can't do it with two people. That's impossible to start with. What you just said, you bring it up, or somebody else and me sign it, or somebody else. You can't do that. Under Florida law, it has to be three people approve to start with. And then as far as, I don't have a problem with what you're asking for. I don't have a problem with either this board or the council. It should operate the same way, but we do have a director that oversees the whole board. And I think that if you have something, and I've never hesitated on going in and doing what I want to do. But there's times when there's probably something that you might bring up that's already in the generated process, and not have to have a meeting until it gets fully put on paper for us to look at. So I know where you're going, and I appreciate what you're doing, but I think all you need to do is just take your idea and go in and ask the clerk to agenda the item, and it'll go through the channel. And if it,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
would it satisfy the board member if indeed, on the sentence that we're discussing, if we added about 3 or 4 words, and currently the sentence reads, in the case where a meeting date is scheduled, if we put in the words, and no items are submitted and approved, and there is no business for the CRA board to consider, no meeting will be held.
I think that's just generally the way we operate.
We understand that, but I think his point perhaps is that it doesn't say that. So if we simply could put in, and no items are submitted and approved, then we'll continue on, and there is no business or CRA board to consider, and no meeting will be held. Kind
I don't have a problem with
of
that.
redundant, but
It is redundant.
Well, the issue there is, and thank you for that creativity, and it's getting close. The word approved is who is the approver. That's the problem. And like you said, 3 or more can't legally do it by law. That right now the way it's written is, and historically I've done what you've recommended, Chairman. I submitted something before the agenda deadline, and the executive director of this department did exercise his power to not put it on the agenda. So all of the cancellation power essentially went into one person's hands. And to me, that's not good representation to the people. And
Can you give us a specific example, please?
I
Yeah.
can.
But
Was it repetitive? Had we already discussed it? That's what I'm wondering about. Had we already discussed a specific item that you wanted regurgitated once again?
no, it wasn't an item that.
It was a new item?
I think that's irrelevant to the point. The item that I submitted to Dave Dickey and to Dave Green was in regards to a broad discussion on how we can use funds to help with matching grants. A discussion we're going to have today. Another discussion was from a conversation that Councilmember Randalls and I had previously in regards to how the CRA was going to fund or back the multi-generational facility payback. And challenging my memory here, you were copied on the entire email chain, Councilmember Raymond. That went back and forth in that decision. A memo was released to me by Dave Dickey and staff on canceling the meeting, and I just found it to be a bit lopsided and not a good way to handle how we as a board can cancel meetings. Our code currently says for this council to cancel a regular council meeting, we need, I think, 2 or 3 of us to vote for it. This CRA, Councilmember Raymond, a meeting can be canceled by one person. That's the balance. So what would satisfy me was in the event a meeting needs to be held for it to be canceled. So if I have the power to put things on the agenda, great, but it can be overridden the same as council would override a regular agenda by 3 people on this council. That would satisfy. That would make a lot of sense.
What dates are you talking about? Because I'm a little confused. I mean, I get a lot of email, so I'm just curious. What dates are you talking about?
It's for the sake of time, we can move on.
I'm gonna, we heard what you said, and I see where you're going, and I kind of look at it the same way, but we have a director of our CRA, and we have a city manager that manages our city functions without us interfering. Okay, that's the point of the city government operating under a city management. I look at other cities that micromanage, as I would call it, like the council wants to direct everything. That's why they're not succeeding. You heard the old expression, too many cooks in the kitchen spoils the soup. That's what happens when everybody micromanages. You hire somebody who has the expertise to manage things that you direct to get done, and then if they're not done in such a fashion, then you get somebody that does. But you have people that do that, and I know I can name you cities. I don't want to do it that micromanage. I watch them, and I'm going to let Mr. Green explain his reason why he didn't foresee what you saw or whatever. I'm going to let him say it. You had your say, and let him say what he wants to say now.
My recollection of the timing of this is rather simple, and I do not remember it quite the way Board Member Morrison does. My recollection was it was a request to have a conversation, a meeting of the board to deal with grant programs being offered. David Dickey, the executive director, and me as the registered agent, our position was we are in the process of drafting those, and we're not really prepared at that point in time to even have the conversation because they were in draft. And this board may remember at the June meeting, we presented you with a series of recommendations and proposals for you to consider that dealt with it. So I saw it, A, as simply we were not prepared to have the conversation. It was a work in progress. We weren't certainly going to prepare all the work that you saw on June 6th within a week or 10 days. That was a very detailed, lengthy process to get that to the board, and that was the context that I recall, and I think perhaps Mr. Dickey may remember it simply. The simple solution to this, it's so simple, it's almost scary. So all we do is establish the same criteria for agenda cutoff for the CRA meeting as we do for the city council. And if any member of the board doesn't submit anything, then I would think as city manager, for the amount of money you pay me, or in this case, you don't pay me to be registered agent, whichever, I could go ahead and make a logical conclusion is there are no requests, so therefore there is no need to have the meeting.
Yeah.
And that's how darn complicated this matter really is. And it's something we could have discussed and settled pretty quickly because I just offered the solution.
One comment back to that is consistent. The grant, the solution, it doesn't solve the solution because you still have the ability to cancel. In that event where you said we're not ready, first thing I wanted to speak with the board about the ideas, and if staff wasn't ready, that's okay. I wanted to discuss that. But here's a good idea. In the event where you say, Wes, I think it's a bad idea. As your executive director, I do not want to move forward with this. Council, send an email out. Mayor Pro Tem Brown, chair with 3 votes, just like a regular council meeting. My idea gets shut down and it never makes the agenda. So it can be stopped by a 3-person vote. That solves the problem. What you're recommending does not solve the problem because you exercised your power to cancel unless you're willing to say that cancellation would happen with 3 votes. That, I think, is a good idea on your behalf.
What I'm saying is it doesn't require any 3 votes. If you want to have a meeting, you give us the material, prepare the agenda item just like you do for the city council meeting, then the meeting will be held.
Okay, I was being sympathetic that people could put things on the agenda that aren't needed, and I
But
heard
we
that.
fully expect that at this point, believe me, so it's not a problem.
Yeah, that's a.
Just
you.
some information I want to put out. We got to move on because at 6 o'clock, the live stream cuts off automatically on this meeting. So we'll just die out in space if we don't get done. So, but we can move on this item and finish putting it down, whatever we need to do. We know where you're coming from. I think we can work that out. If you go in and want to present something, I've asked for things and didn't get it on there because I was told reasons why. So I just accept it and move on. But there are certain things that you may want to do. I think they'll get put on there. I don't have a problem. And we're getting into the facade grants, which basically you were talking about part of your situation. So that all basically wasn't ready to go before us, but now it is. So I'd like to, we just go ahead and move on if we can, or if you're through. I don't want to.
Yeah, it's a
Short
1 year.
change, huh?
I'll move forward with good faith, and we shall see.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So we need a motion for item number 2 to approve as we have it before us.
Mr. Chair, I would move for approval of the 2018 and 19 Community Redevelopment Agency Board meeting schedule and financial reporting
Second.
requirements.
Yep.
Okay, we have
And
a
I'll
motion
second.
by Mr. Randalls and Wes, right? Call the roll, please.
Vice Chairperson Brown,
4.
Chairperson Hoag,
4.
Board Member Morrison,
4.
Board Member Randalls,
4.
Board Member Raymond.
4.
Okay, our next one is a resolution number CRA 6. Mr. Attorney, you want to?
Item 3 is the adoption of the annual budget for the Community Redevelopment Agency. It's a resolution CR-06, a resolution of the City of Cape Canaveral Community Development Agency adopting a budget for the Cape Canaveral Community Redevelopment Agency for fiscal year 2018-2019, providing for the repeal of prior inconsistent resolutions, severability, and an effective date.
Anybody want to say something on this item? Up here.
If we made you, just be sure that that was the opportunity for public input. Yes.
Close the public hearing, but Dias? Mr. Raymond, do you have anything you want to?
I have nothing.
Mr. Renders?
Nope, I'm
All right.
clear on it.
Wes? Mr. Morrison?
No, sir.
Mr. Brown?
No.
Having nothing, would like to have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Raymond and a second by Mr. Brown. Call the roll, please.
Vice Chairperson Brown,
4.
Chairperson Hoag,
Four.
Board Member Morrison,
4.
Board Member Randalls,
For the motion.
Board Member Raymond.
4.
Item number 4 is Resolution 2018-16, joint resolution. Mr. Attorney.
Next item is joint resolution number 2018-16. The same resolution will be presented to the City Council this evening at your council meeting. It's a joint resolution of the City Council of the City of Cape Canaveral, Florida City, and the Cape Canaveral Community Redevelopment Agency recognizing a joint public partnership between the city and the agency related to the pending redevelopment activities associated with the redevelopment of Canaveral City Park, including the construction of a new multi-generational center and the Cape Canaveral Cultural Arts Preservation Enrichment Cape Center, collectively referred to as the redevelopment activities, providing for a financial contribution from the agency to assist in funding the redevelopment activities, providing for the approval of an interlocal agreement, memorializing the terms and conditions of the agency's commitment to assist in funding the redevelopment activities in an annual amount equal to the annual principal and interest payment paid by the city on the bank loan with Whitney Bank, DBA Hancock Bank, which was authorized by the City Council under ordinance number 07-2017 and resolution number 2017-10 in an amount equal to $6.2 million for the express purposes stated in the loan agreement of the redevelopment of Canaveral City Park, including the construction of a new multi-generational center, the Cape Canaveral Cultural Arts Preservation Enrichment Cape Center, and related capital improvements located within the redevelopment area, providing for the repeal of prior inconsistent resolutions, no conflicts, severability, and an effective date. While there's a lot of detail in the package, I think the title to this particular matter is summarized pretty well. I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding either the joint resolution or the interlocal agreement, which would be approved if you adopt this resolution. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Okay, going to open up to the public first. And anybody who would like to speak on this? Hearing none, we'll close it public and bring it to the dais. Mark down on there.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I could, I took a moment with the help of staff and the city man, or our executive director, and went back and reviewed the CRA Brevard County agreement and found out that it had been signed. The county was about a month late in agreeing to it, but they had agreed to it, and it has been signed, and it's compatible with what we're doing here.
Thank you.
So if there is nothing further, well, let the others speak first.
Mr. Morrison?
I have no comments. Thank you.
Mr. Brown?
No comment.
I don't have anything other than I think this is just, to me, is part of providing what I would call the quality of life to the citizens that have asked for these things that we're promoting in our 5-year plan, which is the major part of it. And I support this 150% because it's what the people wanted, not what we dreamed up. It's what is in our vision of this city. This type of thing that we're doing, yeah, it's I would say for what we're going to get, I don't think it's expensive, but a lot of people look at the amount of money that is entailed as a lot of money, but the city hall was a lot of money, but it really wasn't. So the building is even larger than this building. And for the money that we're going to spend for that, I think the final last word will be ooh and awe when they see it. So I don't have a problem with what we're doing. I commend our staff and our director for putting all this type of thing together. That's such a nominal fee of 2% interest is like unbelievable. But I'm gonna support it, so I'm looking for a motion.
I support it also. I'm very proud of the city of Cape Canaveral. We're moving forward. I think that it's very important in a city this size that we be proactive, not reactive. We need to plan for the future, and that's what we're doing. And I'm very proud that we are being proactive. Thank you. And I very much support it, and I'd like to make a motion. If we're ready for that, I will.
We're ready for a motion. We got to get it.
Okay, I move that we approve the resolution with the Community Redevelopment Agency. The agreement is, I think, 2012-16. Is that correct?
I think it's 2018.
2018-16 is our
I
resolution.
didn't have the right one in front of me on the screen, and I worked with the screen. Thank you.
second.
Joint resolution number 2018-16. Thank you.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Raymond and a second by Mr. Brown. Would you call the roll, please?
Vice Chairperson Brown,
4.
Chairperson Hoag,
Four?
Board Member Morrison,
4.
Board Member Randalls,
For the motion.
Board Member Raymond.
4.
Okay, we have open discussion. Is there anybody who want to?
Mr. Mayor, well, you know, I think it's generally understood since the CRA just adopted the resolution, there is a Part B to this agenda item. That Part B
I
is
see it. I missed it.
requesting the CRA recommend approval of the resolution to the Cape Canaveral City Council, which must take action.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yep.
Yeah, we have to recommend approval of this resolution to the city council hearing for approval. So we need a motion to recommend resolution 2018-16 to the city council.
Make a motion that we approve resolution 2018-16 to the Cape Canaveral City Council.
I second it.
Thank you. Okay, a motion's been made by Mr. Brown and a second by Mr. Raymond. Can you call the roll, please, on resolution 2018-16 recommendation?
Vice Chairperson Brown,
4.
Chairperson Hoag,
Okay, four?
Board Member Morrison,
4.
Board Member Randalls,
For the resolution.
Board Member Raymond.
4.
Okay, our open discussion. We don't have any discussion from council? Public discussion? Closed public discussion? And report. Call the meeting to adjournment, please. Thank you.